Hi, my name's Kate Cummins and I'm the occupational therapist that visits school. Over the next couple of months I'm going to be working with the staff in the prep area to do some screening on all of the students, and what we're looking for is making sure that all of the kids have the skills that they need to be able to learn successfully in the classroom. And I wanted to share some of those skills with you because the kids are going to spend about 1,200 hours this year at school, and they're going to spend about 3,500 hours at home, and that's if you take out the time that they'll be asleep. So really, to make the most impact on the kids in terms of setting them up for successful learning in the future, there's lots of little things that you can be doing at home, and I'm sure most of you are already doing these things, but it's just letting you know why they're important and how they're going to benefit your child. So I'm just going to draw a little diagram on the board behind me just to give you a bit of an overview of what their development looks like in the first 6 years of their life, because that's when most of the growth happens. So if you think of their bodies as being like a pyramid, and in the first 6 years that's when the most growth happens, and at the top of the pyramid we've got academic learning. So you think of that as the very tip. All of the stuff that they're going to learn at school is right up the top of the pyramid. The next things down, so still really high up, are their language development and their behaviour. They need to have good language development and relatively good behaviour for them to be able to participate properly in their learning. Underneath that you've got their attention and concentration and their self-care skills. So we obviously want them to be able to attend for the duration of an activity for them to get the best outcomes with their learning, and you need them to be able to take care of themselves, to be able to eventually tie their own shoelaces, dress themselves, feed themselves, all of those things that are going to make them independent. The issue we're finding, and I'm having with lots of kids who are starting school, is that there's some cracks appearing up here. So there might be some issues regarding their behaviour or issues regarding their attention, some problems with their language development. There can be some issues with their ability to take care of themselves and their independence around that. And what that does is it makes it hard for them then to develop the higher functioning skills like reading and writing. So the reason for those difficulties that we're seeing at the top of the pyramid are stemming from the foundation skills, and these are the things that are starting to develop from birth. And so if we can really focus on getting those right, then we're going to have much more success in teaching them the higher functioning skills. So if you look at the bottom of the pyramid, what happens first in terms of development is that our sensory system develops. So all the information comes in from our environment through our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth. It comes in through our skin, and it tells our brain what to do with that information and how to respond. So we've got the senses that everyone knows about, like our hearing, our taste, our smell, and our vision. But we've got 3 internal senses that are even more important than those. And those senses are our proprioception, which is basically our body awareness. So that's what tells us when we're walking through the door where the door is in relation to our body, so that we don't bump into the door as we go past. If we're holding an ice cream cone, that we hold it strong enough that we don't drop it, but not too firmly so that we crush it. So that body awareness sense is really important. We often see kids come into school and they're really rough, and they don't mean to be rough, and they're not being naughty, but they just have no awareness of where they are in relation to the other kids, and so they're stomping over other kids to get to the front of the class, or they put digging holes in their paper with their pencil, or they get food all spread all around their face rather than in their mouth, or they keep knocking their chairs over, those sort of things. The next sense that, again, not people don't know a lot about, but it's really important, is what we call our vestibular sense. That's located in your inner ear, and it's this little sac of fluid that's meant to be about half full, but there's all these little hair follicles around the outside, and every time your head moves through space, those little hair follicles are activated, and it tells your brain, this is where my body is in space. What we're seeing is that lots of kids are getting to school, and it might have been that they had lots of antibiotics when they were a baby, or it might have been that they had heaps of ear infections, and so that little sac of fluid was always full. It might have been that they spent a lot of time in hospital in early infancy. There's all sorts of different reasons that can lead to problems with their vestibular system, but basically the impact it has on their learning is that it affects their balance, it affects their core strength, and it can even affect their anxiety levels at school because they don't have a good sense of feeling grounded. They don't know where their body is in space, and that can be really frightening and scary for them. So that's something else that we work towards understanding and then helping to support them with. The other area is touch. So touch is about being aware of pain, being aware of temperature, but also how they respond to different inputs or textures and things. So one of the common things that we see is kids who are maybe oversensitive to touch, and they're not liking different fabrics or different clothes. They might not like wearing shoes and socks, and we see that becoming a problem in the classroom when they're in close proximity to other kids and they're getting bumped and on the way when they're lining up, or someone's brushing past them, and that feeling can be really uncomfortable and really irritating. So these things form sort of the foundation, and if there's any issues down there, then we start to see some trouble with their learning up here. One of the main things that we start to see difficulty with in the middle here is with their gross motor skills. So kids who are starting school and they're having trouble jumping and hopping and skipping, and if they're having trouble in those areas, then it's going to be really hard for them to learn more complex skills. So more complex gross motor skills, like how to hit a ball, for example. Throwing and catching can be harder if they haven't got good body control, but it can be even really hard to sit on the mat for a long time or to sit at a chair for a long time. So it's really important that we have good foundation sort of gross motor skills in order to be able to learn fine motor skills, which are up here in terms of handwriting and things. So we want to make sure that they've got good strength through their core. We want to make sure that they've got strong shoulder muscles, strong arm muscles, strong hand muscles, and that's going to allow them then to develop strong muscles in their fingers to help with their handwriting. So I guess my point in saying all of these things to you is that the way that kids develop these things down the bottom is generally through physical activity. And the research is saying now that kids under school age, even under 13, need to be getting 1 hour of vigorous exercise a day and 1 to 2 hours of moderate exercise or physical activity a day. So just keeping in mind that before and after school, obviously the kids are going to need some downtime and a bit of time out and a bit of rest from a busy day, but it's also really important that they're getting opportunity to be huffing and puffing, to be working their muscles, and it doesn't always have to come from fun things like going to the playground or that sort of stuff. It can come from riding their bike to school, it can come from helping bring in the washing, from helping move the wood or bring the groceries in from the car. Any sort of houseworky type things can be a really good way to introduce that to kids as well. So it's more just recognising that if they're getting lots of physical activity, then their sensory systems are going to be developing really well, which is going to make it easier for them to concentrate in class. It's going to make it easier for them to develop strength in their hand. It's going to help with their handwriting. So that's sort of probably one of the main things. Just something else to keep in mind in regards to that too is that sometimes you're going to have kids in the classroom whose energy levels are really high, and other kids in the classroom whose energy levels are really low, and so they're the kids who you have to push them to get out of bed, and you have to encourage them to get dressed and to put their shoes on and to have their breakfast, and you're sort of pushing them out the door the whole time. And then they get to school and they're still quite lethargic and tired, and sometimes have trouble concentrating. So you've got kids sort of at that extreme, and then you've got kids that wake up and they're just bouncing off the walls and they're so excited about the day, but they just have some trouble calming down. So when you're teaching kids at two extremes, finding that nice happy medium is tricky. So something that we do with the staff at school and something that you can be doing at home is we talk about our body as being like a car engine, and sometimes that engine runs high and sometimes that engine runs low, and that for us to be good students we now need our engine to run just right. And the way that we do that is by making sure that we're giving our body the input and the energy that it needs. And so that comes down to the foods we eat, the exercise we get, the amount of sleep we've had, and all of those things impact on our ability to sit and concentrate in the classroom. So Thinking about the kinds of things your kids are doing before school can be really helpful as well. So if they're getting to school 10 minutes early, can they be outside playing on the climbing frame? If you've got some spare time before they come to school or before the bus leaves, rather than watching TV, that might be a good time for them to go out and bounce on the trampoline, or to ride their bikes around the veranda, or just little input like that that can make a big difference in supporting their attention when they get to school. Other things to think about are the kinds of things that are in their drink bottles. So drink bottles that are harder to suck, so with straws and things, they're going to help support attention more than drink bottles that are easy to drink out of. The same thing with foods that they're eating. Chewy and crunchy foods are going to keep them much more alert than soft foods like yogurts and bananas, for example. And the other thing I suppose I wanted to say about that as well is just keeping in mind when they're getting home from school the kinds of activities that you've got planned for their evenings. So obviously some downtime is important and giving them an opportunity to rest and from the day, but it's also important that they get the energy out after the day as well, and that they have some time to really get their to get huffing and puffing and get that good intense movement so that they sleep then really well in the evenings as well. So they're just a few little tips that I find really useful for the kids that we're working with in making sure that they've got those foundation skills that they need for their learning. If you've got any questions, I'm going to be at school over the next couple of months, so by all means raise it with the teachers and we'll be happy to talk about it a bit more. Thank you.